Go through a small presentation, and hopefully this will give you better insight on some of the linkages between marketing and stakeholder engagement for incubators. So basically, if we look at the definition of marketing, in a nutshell, it's performing particular activities that generate or fulfill client needs. So something that gives value to customers. And the approach is very simple. You identify, as Barbara put, you identify what you have, you identify a product, who you're going to sell it to, and then you have a strategy on approaching the particular person you're trying to generate value for, and then you have a plan on how to carry out the different activities. So social media, one-on-one conversations, being parts of groups, and all of this is centered around understanding what your market is, who you want to actually generate the value for. It's changed over time. In the beginning, it used to be just grouping people in segments or portions, and then it went to transactional in the late 80s, where people were able to interact as individuals. But then in the 90s, it moved more into bonding and strengthening relationships between people. Right now, the current trend is co-creating value. So it's a win-win situation between you and the person you're serving. This is best illustrated. I'm just going to jump straight to the example of that puts everything into one. So, for example, you have an incubator that has a product. Let's say it's a product that does mobile money, and this product is, oops, this product is going to affect different people. So there's a client in the incubator, then there's a customer who is the person who's going to use the product from the incubator, and then there's a private entity, maybe a sponsor who's interested in achieving a certain goal, and then there's the general public. So this is usually a government entity. So from the different examples, those are the stakeholders you'd have in a nutshell in the incubator business. So the incubator are looking for some funding, they're probably looking for some guidance in business. Then the customer is looking for the end product. So maybe it's an accounting system, maybe it's a management system. The private sponsor who's putting money into the incubator is looking for a return on their investment. Maybe they're looking to get some social capital. And usually on the public side, so this is your typical governments, their returns that they're usually looking for are things like job creation. They want to increase the tax base and increase the amount of revenue that the actual the country is bringing in. And the approaches for these four different segments are slightly different. So the incubator clients are usually offer matchmaking services, show value to the people who are coming into the incubator that they can actually get sponsors. Then for the customers, you need to have a catalog of meet their needs and that have actually been specifically designed for them. And then for private entities, you'll need to be able to have and present high quality startups through pitching events, through competitions, hackathons that engage the sponsors and the incubator clients. And lastly, on the public side, it's a bit more difficult, but it's really building realistic models for predicting contributions towards taxation and also job growth, because this is what governments look at for incubators to generate for them. And this all has to fit into your annual plan, your incubator plan. You could call it a marketing plan, you could call it a business plan for the incubator, but all of these elements have to come into and get sequenced into how your incubator survives for the rest of a given period in time. And just a bit more on stakeholders. Again, this might just help you put everything into perspective. This is a categorization of different stakeholders. Just to give you an example of what what would be in the public um, what would be the public domain. Oh, pardon me, this doesn't look correct. So you have governments, local authorities, politicians and public servants. For the private sector, you have venture capitalists, investors, private companies, all whose goal is really just to make sure they maximize their profit. For the internal organization, you're looking at board members who might be looking at making an impact in the world. You're looking at the incubator clients who are looking for the business growth, help in acquiring funding, and then the people who are already funding. This is the internal customers. The people who are already funding, what are they looking for within an engagement? And this all ties down again to being able to perform the marketing function in its entirety. So it's being able to identify who you want to help and what is in it for them. That's the product you're selling, and then creating a strategy. And that strategy will help you formulate a plan, which is something that's formally written down, that has clear purpose, timelines, and also is able to get revisited after a particular period to get continuously improved. I think that's the bulk of the what I wanted to say. Maybe the stakeholders, we might look at them in terms of different areas, the people who help make decisions. So maybe it's someone who can influence a budget. So it's maybe a VC or a funder, or someone who has an authority and is able to give you permission to perform a certain function, be a government in this instance. So if it's a telecom product and it needs to be regulated, the government will give you authority.